Hello and welcome to Weekly Open. My name is Brian and I am here with Cred. Don is out today, but we're happy to have you here for Weekly Open. As a reminder, you can go to youtube.com/weeklyopen to keep up with this show. Cred, how you doing?
You know, I've never heard less fitting music than our intro music. If you sort of compare, market conditions to the joyous tune that was playing in our intro, that's a real divergence. But
Yeah.
doing all right. I mean, it's been an interesting week to say the least. It's hard to, I feel like I'm still short on thinking time because everything's still been developing and we have new headlines and new things coming up every single day, every single hour on Twitter. So I feel like I'm missing that time where, the wires kind of slow down and I can just sit down and actually think through the whole thing. I just feel like I've been super reactionary and chasing and this, that, and trying to keep up. But I feel we're all due this period of just like digestion and be like, okay, well, what the fuck happened type of thing. And I didn't feel like I've had the time for that yet.
Yeah, I agree. I was supposed to take a little bit of time this weekend to just sit back and relax and kind of decompress a bit. And my wife took a picture of me. I was on the back porch and I was supposed to be, watching football, and I was like looking at my phone and still following the same crap.
That's when you know it's bad, right? When football's on and you're on your phone.
Yeah, pretty much. Don's not here today. He had an appointment that he couldn't escape from. I probably shouldn't use words like escape right now in crypto.
Yeah, that's right.
He's not on the run, to our knowledge.
Right, he's not in the Bahamas. It's just some family stuff. I
Yeah.
think he's got on, but he'll be back next week and also on other shows and things like that. I think maybe that we got that question a lot, and we do appreciate our audience asking if the usual stuff's going to continue, be it Weekly Open or other shows, and of course they are. Right, that's our intention. Free, not for sponsored, unsponsored, whatever. Like we enjoy making this stuff, and we're all friends, and we have a jolly good time together. So that's not going anywhere. But we do appreciate you reaching out and asking.
Yeah, in terms of kind of where we are versus where we were, last week was basically minutes before the dam broke. If I recall correctly, like where we were versus where we are was that right after we recorded was when Binance announced the acquisition. Is that right?
It's the letter of intent. Yeah. So acquisition pending due diligence.
Right.
And we all know how that went.
Right. So that was the last thing we saw, and the amount of information that occurred in the days since was a lot. So since then, of course, we've seen that things went from illiquid to insolvent, but maybe not fraudulent, to completely fraudulent at some point, to completely fraudulent from probably the beginning, and like the the full arc that none of us expected by any means, of course, and we're pretty devastated by it. Like we put our name on the line here with FTX as a partner, so I don't think we could have predicted this. I don't think very many people did at all, and the ones that did, it looked conspiratorial, and certainly to the degree, like CZ was just talking about, how he was amazed about the degree of the activity that Sam undertook. And so I think everybody got hoodwinked. Of course, we've had their name on our show and other shows for a year now, so I'm very sorry for that. Obviously, would take it back in huge measure. But all we can do is really move on and try to be as responsible as we can, which we've tried, and that didn't mean that it played out, but we will continue to try. So thanks for hanging with us, and hope everybody makes it out. Yeah.
Oh, did I just lose you, Ledger? I'm sorry. Maybe it's my connection side of things completely phased out for me. Maybe the chat can tell me if I'm being insane, and then I can rejoin if it's an issue on my side. Sorry. Oh, no sound from Ledger. Can't hear Ledger. It's him. Well, we know who to blame again. Ledger audio has died. I'm sure we'll work on getting that back to you quickly. Cred also sounding extra British. I'm not sure what that means. I think I generally sound the same, unless I'm speaking to animals or small children, like relatives and cousins and that. Then I sound slightly more American than I would ordinarily. But where is Don? Family-related appointment, I think. Anna Reichert says, "Bills not paid, stream offline." That's good. That's funny.
Hey,
Oh, there you are.
well, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. For some reason, my sound is now going through my speakers and a bunch of stuff rugged, and I'm
Oh,
connected
nice.
to a mobile connection. I don't know why. Or maybe
Fix
it's
that
okay.
quite quickly.
Is my sound better? I think the audio is going through the wrong direction. I'm not sure
It
why.
sounds good, but I think I can hear myself just a
Yeah,
tiny
it's
bit.
because I'm echoing like crazy because it's coming
Cool.
through a whole different source. I'll try to fix that, but if you would like
Sure.
to, I'm gonna put
Do you
your
want me to
chart
chart?
on, and if you wanna
Yeah,
talk
let's
about
do it.
the price of freaking Bitcoin.
Oh, let's do it. I can take us through some candlestick make boing type of stuff. I'll try to channel some inner Don as well, given he's not here right now. But the premise would be something along the lines of, if you're going to go for the monthly time frame, we can bring up Coinbase even for a bit more history. On the monthly time frame, the level which has been kind of ubiquitous in our analysis as things have just been going down is monthly support, which is the highest monthly close of last cycle at around 14K. It was a kind of swing high here, breakout, and then that seems to be on the monthly time frame the next level, because at the time of recording, what we had, which was kind of the wick or the extreme of last cycle's high, that was our range low for a few months, and this seems about as breakdowny as it gets. So you break one level of support, especially after building a lot of structure there and building a range there, spending a lot of time there, you generally look for the next level until the invalidation presents itself or the level's reclaimed and whatever. And that's not available at the moment. And it's really on the weekly time frame. You can see how much of a break from balance this is. We're essentially range bound from June until October, which is quite a long time. This entire period was just a post breakdown consolidation. So, one way to view it, and we sort of squiggled this before, I think, which is impulse, consolidation, and then impulse in the continuation in the direction of the preceding trend. And that's sort of what it looks like at the moment. This is a really big, scary looking outside bar. Also, if you just look at the state of the market beyond the technicals, there are a lot of fears about contagion and spillover and solvency of major other exchanges and regulatory issues that we might be facing and losses that are being hidden or funds being shuffled around and all of that. So aside from the technicals, obviously for self-evident reasons, the fundamental picture isn't great either. So when it comes to market structure and levels, I mean, I posted a short video on my Twitter this morning, which is like 2 minutes long, but it's really on the higher time frame support side of things. You have 12 to 14K ish. I think 14K is like good if you're looking at monthly closes, but in terms of just structure, I don't think it's as good. And the reason I say that is because you had this whole kind of inefficient leg up take place from essentially 12 on this 12K breakout all the way to 20K. So like as soon as this was ripped off, we just teleported from 12 to 20 without building any structure here. And you can see in the past, when the market gets a chance in a trend to reach for those types of one-sided moves in price, just like this leg got filled when support broke, it does it pretty quickly, right? So if you're seeing support being built diagonally more so than horizontally, that's always, that should always raise an eyebrow. But you can definitely live in a world where, for example, the weekly structure gets tested, but then on the monthly close, you actually end up consolidating closer to the level. That's completely plausible. So it's really what's above us and what's below us that matters. In terms of what's above us, any type of like 20K reclaim or higher high or anything that basically negates this breakdown, that's good news. And that was kind of the scenario Don was discussing before everything went to shit, which is that if we're going to go below June's low, it should be quick and it should be reclaimed quickly. So purely technically speaking, that's still on the table if it sets up. In terms of what's below us, if you're looking for monthly closes and much higher time frame kind of position trading, you want to see price stay above 14K on that basis. But for me, where the real shelf or structure is closer to 12 should we continue. So your options essentially, I mean, if you're going to trade within here as some sort of range forms, that's fine. But it's really above 20 is a meaningful signal, and a dip into 12 to 14 is a meaningful signal. And maybe this even ends up being our range for some time. Which wouldn't be kind of the worst thing in the world. But in terms of what's immediately available in front of us right now, we had a multi-month range that's broken down, and that's not good. That just is what it is. And especially generally speaking, the longer the consolidation, the stronger or longer the expansion that follows. You should generally be very careful fading large shifts from balance and doing so too early. I want to see some more price action, but when you consider the state of the industry right now, my sort of laziness and patience for this market, I'm not about to turn that ship around immediately.
Yeah, just increased dramatically, I presume.
Yeah, but yeah, it seems that way, honestly.
It's incredible to me that we always say, well, what's going to cause this or that, and trying to find marry the fundamentals and the technicals. The market does always appear to find a way for the fundamentals to line up with the technicals. Another thing, I just couldn't help but think and I just wonder if this is going to have a psychological effect on others. As you were talking about that teleportation and inefficient market on the way up, is questioning what caused that and how organic was it,
Yeah.
And I hate that that's where my head is now. And it's not like crypto's been fully efficient in the past, but it just does make you question, and it popped in my head, so throwing it out here, like whose funds and what money caused a leg up like that, and what incentive was there for it to occur. And I think it's just a sign of kind of the damage that's been done to the market,
Oh yeah.
and therefore, like, what type of overhead could exist for people just looking to get out of it, as they have the same type of questions or lose, faith or whatever else. And therefore, what kind of price do you need from a discount perspective uh, to be optimistic about it? And I think it's one thing with Bitcoin and ETH. It's much bigger as you go down the line, and the organic nature is even more in question, the different altcoins and stuff that you dig into. So I feel like, I wonder if there's an opportunity for like a significant dominance run that may or may not include both BTC and ETH, but relative to basically everything else.
Yeah, that would be sort of in line with what we generally see with cycles beginning, whereas the money goes to the things that have survived or are expected to have good performance on a multi-cycle basis, like BTC and ETH, and then we sort of create new narratives and chase them and whatever else. Your question is correct. I mean, look, when it comes to big moves in price or trends or whatever, it's really two things that you need, or at least one of these two things, which is large institutions deploying capital, or cheap borrow and sort of easy access to leverage and accessible crypto credit markets. It
Or
doesn't look like
significant amounts of retail.
or significant amounts of retail. Yeah, but they're always late, right? That's
Right,
sort of
right.
they sort
Yeah,
of
that's
come later.
a good point.
Yeah, but at the very least, to sort of get started, to get a trend started, you need one or ideally both of those things. Because look, you don't need those for the bottom to come in. That just means when the sellers have run out of tokens. But if you want to, someone at the end of the day has to start crossing the spread and bidding this thing up. And in my estimation, it has to be either those large pools of capital or cheap borrow credit markets, whatever it may be. It's not obvious to me that we have either of those things for some time, at least, right? So the large institutional, whatever pools of capital, I mean, the reputational risk in crypto right now is probably among the highest it's ever been, especially when it comes to like the quote unquote sophisticated age, or as far as since it's penetrated the public consciousness to this degree. This is probably peak, like, oh, you're such an idiot, you're in crypto, it's all a big Ponzi scheme type of thing. So I don't think outside of like a few, and even then, that doesn't necessarily spill over to secondary markets, but I do think just the reputational risk is really elevated now. And as far as cheap borrow or credit markets or lending and so on, I think after Luna and 3AC, a lot of credit markets contracted quite substantially. And I think after this, it's going to be, a lot worse than even that correction was when it comes to sort of leverage, borrow, etc. So we've sort of deprived ourselves of the two things that make number go up or that make number trend quite aggressively, and then that's very difficult to contend with, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And it just has an impact no matter what you want to think about otherwise. Like the justification for the price moves has changed. Um, I got kind of distracted because Snowden's tweeting TA, and I feel like that's relevant for this show. Like
Oh my
irrelevant.
god! Wow.
So during the COVID bottom, he said, "This is the first time in a while I felt like buying Bitcoin. That drop was too much panic and too little reason." And then big green arrow, big red arrow. There's still a lot of trouble ahead,
Nice.
but for the first time in a while, I'm starting to feel the itch to scale back in. So, Snowden, if you ever want to be a guest, hop on. We need some of these lines.
Man
Um,
went from NSA to NFA real quick, eh?
That's a good line, Credit. Are you holding on to that one?
No, no, my brain is just
He
plagues
did.
me and doesn't let me
Oh wait,
sleep.
he literally just responded to that. Did you see that part of it? The second tweet, he literally said,
Oh
"Not
no.
financial advice." When
That's
most
good.
people
That's good.
when most people say this is not financial advice, they're lying. But this is actually not financial advice since I have zero financial education and no idea what I'm doing. Well, son, what you got wrong there is nobody else does either.
He's just like me. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I can totally understand that. It's completely insane to me. Like, if you want to know how crazy the like headlines have been, Bitcoin's at like 16K, and no one's talking about like price or charts or levels or technicals or anything like that. You know,
Yeah,
that's like shocking.
isn't it is kind of the type of thing that happens at bottoms though, right? Like I'm not trying to call it a bottom, but it's the type of like
Behavior.
behavior. Yeah, it's
Sure.
over complacency, blah blah blah.
Wow. Did you see the FUD chart I posted, like the extreme sort of meme tier FUD I posted when it came to Bitcoin? And it was basically this, that if we take last cycle's levels of 20K and 3K, so, you know, that's the cycle high, that's the cycle low. All of this was just a dream in our imagination and never happened. And this is sort of the range that we're back within. And the mean slash fair value of that range ends up at that same weekly, you
Yeah,
know, 11,
12K.
12K type of level. And then, you know, we spend 20 years ranging between 3K and 20K until Suzu has made enough scalping to restart a super cycle. That's what we're going for, obviously.
Just as an aside, I saw that you reposted one of your historical uh, education videos on horizontal support and resistance. So if people really are looking for education and get their mind off of the news, then check
Oh,
out.
yeah.
Uh, is that on Technical Roundup or what?
No, it's on the
Cred
OG Crypto Cred channel.
Crypto
I
Cred.
uploaded an updated horizontal support resistance video. The last one was made in June 2018, and frankly,
Nice.
that entire like base of TA knowledge series thing was built in the last bear market, and I've just kind of added to it over time.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, if not now, then when? So I'm going to
That
be a bit more active on that channel with content and updates and the trading related stuff specifically. So
nice.
keep all of us occupied. You know.
If you'll allow me to keep putting you on the spot from the chart perspective,
Yeah, sure.
does the ETH side of things look or feel different to you, or is BTC and ETH basically the same?
I'm like kind of surprised. Well, I guess it overshot as well. But you know, historically, what we see with these large, like really large corrections, is that ETH dumps more than Bitcoin does, right? We haven't seen that yet, which is interesting. And structurally, it doesn't look as bad because Bitcoin is basically here, right? So this was its kind of range, and it blatantly just broke down from that range, and it's somewhere in the middle. ETH hasn't done that yet, and it's sort of back into its sort of 1K handle monthly type of structure in this area. So it doesn't look as bad. But the question is, do I want to bid ETH if I don't have any setups on Bitcoin whatsoever? And it looks like it might be in free fall. The answer is like probably not. How that translates to me is I can do I can do both, but two things come to mind. I can either just trade ETH independently of BTC just on a much lower time frame and say, hey, well, at least there's structure here and I can day trade this, which is reasonable. Or I can say, I'm going to wait for Bitcoin to hit some sort of big structural level or present some sort of setup. But when it does, I'm going to trade ETH instead of BTC because it's been relatively stronger and I expect there to be more upside and whatever else. So those two things make sense to me. I don't have a clear interpretation of the fact that it hasn't, you didn't even poke through it. I mean, this was a bit extreme, to be fair, and that was a lot of kind of altcoin leverage came out. I don't have any setups like where ETH is right now. My eye test kind of takes us back to the 1200 level that we've spoken about at length, and that's sort of where a lot of the fight is going on. Yeah, for me, it's either going to be short-term engagements or waiting for Bitcoin to have a setup before I can poke this. It does look better at the moment, but like better isn't good enough when Bitcoin looks like this, to be clear. And just as a quick aside, I mentioned that above 20K is good, and if it dumps into these high time frame levels, that's good. It doesn't have to do either of those things. I mean, that would be nice because I like doing business where I have predetermined areas. But it could, for example, just like carve out a range somewhere between those levels, like I don't know, like a 14 to 18K or 17K range, and spend a lot of time there, and then maybe form some sort of failed breakdown and resolve that way. So I'm just more expressing a preference that like I have these levels, these levels matter, they're good, I know how to trade them, but that's not a prerequisite for the market to unfold or resolve that way. I don't think anyone knows at the moment, frankly. I just know when I see a multi-month range and a big breakdown from that range, I don't want to step in against that like too soon. I've been carried out a few too many times doing that on thankfully lower time frames.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Makes me sad though, gotta say.
That's understandable. I mean, my Duma ETH targets are like was basically somewhere in this range, and this is a monthly chart. So the pre-bull market kind of range or consolidation is between like 700 and 400. And I'm sure you can slice that up with a midpoint as well. But that's sort of where I'm like, okay, it's kind of squeaky bum time. Like if I could, like this is just complete pure bottom speaking FUD type of levels. But if the market were to give me $500 ETH, that's like a no-brainer. But it's at 1,000. Whatever, 200 now. So I'm just talking nonsense. As far as levels go, I think, just like Bitcoin broke down from its range, what would accelerate an ETH breakdown? I think this monthly level is doing a lot right now. So prior monthly highest close, you had a bit of an attempt to break down here that didn't work. And that same level of support at the moment. And that's at around 1.1K or thereabouts. So you can see that's been very good on the lower time frames as well, daily, weekly, and that's sort of where our range low came in. So if for any reason that gets cooked, at that point the case for a higher low disappears completely. And I think just like I was castigating the Bitcoin inefficient price action, I think there's a similar leg here between like 1.2K and 5 to 700 ETH. It would be a similar type of gap fill target if market structure breaks. That's the real distinction here, right? Bitcoin is below its multi-month range, and that's a real breakdown. ETH is not there yet.
And in terms of other stuff that's broken down, the GBTC discount is now something like 42%.
Yeah.
Which it made a pretty reasonable move out of the 30%-ish discount in addition to its price dump. So it's already kind of at these, I don't know what you like. It's basically the equivalent of the 6K breakdown, right? Like 6 to 8K.
Yes.
It's kind of where
Those
it feels like
shocking prices. Yeah.
No, this is as the just at that time and that point in time.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Because it wasn't
the GBTC thing. I mean, look, you and I have been hearing about the whole premise of like, if you want like Bitcoin exposure, just buy GBTC, and it's discounted. And yeah, there's a fee, but if it gets turned into an ETF or whatever, like that there's a big capture there. And as we've heard that argument made, the market's just bled lower and lower and lower. And at this point, it doesn't even. There's no claim. I mean, I think they're like suing the SEC, but good luck with that now, right? I don't think we have any kind of legislative credibility going on anymore. So I'd be very surprised if that unfolded positively. So the question becomes, how discounted does it have to get for you to want to own it? And I think no discount at the moment is attractive enough, with especially because DCG keeps eating these massive losses, man. This is like the second Genesis bailout in a row. They've given them hundreds of millions of dollars from the 3AC loans and the Alameda loans. Like they've been getting completely butchered, and Barry's probably pissed at the amount of money that he's had to backstop their lending desk with. So it's very tricky for.
Well, they backstopped the other day, another 180 million or something around that.
Yeah.
And Barry's been very quiet, which is I don't personally have. I can't assume anybody's solvent or not, but I don't think he is, but he's very quiet, and his Genesis desk is obviously losing a tremendous amount of money, and the GBTC ETH stuff is really, really bad. I personally think this is one of the best places that the SEC could have an impact, even if they don't approve the ETF. Like enable us an exemption for people to have redemptions. I think it would benefit both the institutional and retail side of this market. Of course, it may also just unlock thousands of coins that people then go sell at actual prices. So who knows? But anyway, it's the 42% is a large discount, and I guess
Mate.
depending on your time horizon, I mean the cost of the product is like 2% per year. So if you think it can resolve itself in less than a decade, then maybe there's upside if you actually want to carry exposure. But anyway, just found it very interesting. Another thing in terms of just horrific timing.
Oh man, don't.
The
My heart.
the rest of the economy had some stuff that we'd been waiting for, right? The CPI numbers came in soft. The Dixie went to 106. The S&P responded positively. If I start with the Dixie, I mean a huge sell off at the same time we were having our existential crisis.
Mhm. Like
So the
all of
Dixie,
your parabolas must be broken there, right? That's one of
yeah,
those where you can't redraw it. It's cooked 100%.
yep, every single one
Yeah.
of them, and I drew a
Yeah.
lot. Like
You drew a lot. We yeah.
we we tried it. We tried this many times, but like there's nothing left on it, right? So like that, there's not a good line that I can draw on the Dixie to make this better. And so it's cooked. At least from a it needs to be sideways, like it seems to me like getting above 112 here is going to take some time,
Yes.
and you could see a serious amount of sideways. And this is obviously directly reflected on the other side for the euro and other
Mhm.
currencies. But we're also seeing it where the stock market responded positively. And I think if I recall correctly, like maybe gold and some other stuff started doing well.
Yep.
And it's basically, yeah, gold went up to 1770 and reclaimed, importantly, like its long-term moving averages and some horizontal levels that you would want to see a reclaim. Like this should be a time for Bitcoin.
Yeah,
It
that's
should.
like 25, 26K BTC, right?
Yeah,
Roughly.
yeah. Like I
Um,
think, yeah, FTX is at least costing 10K in my
yeah.
opinion.
But that's also scary because not only were we deprived of the rally that we hopefully would have taken part in. Thing is, things were looking pretty good. We were above the 21K sort of range midpoint. Also, it's terrifying to talk about 20K as some faraway resistance. Please stop the simulation. But in any case, we were like above pretty good levels. And then the macro came in as it did with the perfect storm of, dollar weakness, equity strength. I think that would be plenty to take us at least to the range high at like 24, 25K. And from there, God knows, where we'd be. The issue is not only do we not get to participate in that, but now that a lot of that structural rally is playing out, what happens to us when that, as you say, goes sideways or slows down or consolidates, or if we get like a surprise in the opposite direction on PCE or something else next month? I mean, we just get completely hammered, right?
Yeah, when the market's down, we're way down. When the market's up, we're flat. That kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
The,
yeah.
the
So
decoupling none of us wanted.
yeah, exactly. So that doesn't give me that's a very uncomfortable to think about. I mean, the S&P in terms of technical stuff, I think for the longest time we were droning on about this monthly cluster on this show and others as well at around the 3700 handle, and we noted that when it closed above, like, hey, look, this is a shift in behavior, right? All of these bearish retests have played out. This one didn't, and you couldn't have asked for a more picture perfect, especially on the weekly time frame. You can't ask for a better retest than that. You're just not allowed to. It doesn't exist. And so this entire kind of dip into support, crypto dip back then as well. If we got to catch a piece of that, which is I think one of the bigger rallies, especially in the Nasdaq. I mean, that thing completely tore faces. Look at that weekly, right? Like if we catch a piece of that, we're in good hands. But if this starts to slow down, so even if we take this S&P range from 3700 range low to 42, 4300 range high, if we cluster off where this midpoint might be, like around the 4K handle, 4,000, 4,100 or thereabouts, even if we do get like a moderate pullback in the S&P towards, to retest support, or just maybe even consolidate at the mid-range before having pushing to the range high? Like, what do we expect the coins to look like if we don't have whatever's left of the correlation bots holding this thing afloat?
That's where your will 12K hold questions come in.
Yeah, I don't know. That's not good. And also, we're not like completely out of the woods, I think, when it comes to bigger picture macro stuff.
No,
it's not
and
obvious to me anyway.
One of the Fed governors already said they were like, the market response to the softer CPI was concerning.
Yeah, so we're seeing the classic walk back, and it's like, look, 7.7% inflation is still really bloody high, like we're used to, supposedly the target being like 2-3%, whatever it may be, just because we've gone down from like 8 plus doesn't mean we've won, right? And it's quite staggering because we become so short-term focused on like, oh, the difference between like 8 and 7.7 is so good. And yes, it is, and it shows a trend in the right direction, and that policy is working, at least for that one single reading. But bigger picture, where we've ended up and how sticky inflation has been, I mean, that's still a problem, So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some walking back over the coming days and weeks. And I'm just really worried that if this rally even healthily pulls back or starts to fade, we get more consolidation in the S&P, which is just about the only thing holding us up from being much more volatile and dumpy, then yeah, that's not something that's in our favor. And also, there's like still so much information asymmetry. Like, crypto is just a big black box when it comes to a large part of the CeFi infrastructure and lending desks and exchanges. Like, there's really no transparency there, and so we don't know the extent of the contagion and which projects had their treasuries on FTX and which funds, how much did they really get out, and are they going to have to sell their other names and their liquid names because they've written their Serum, Solana, FTX equity, FTT down to zero. Like, we didn't know any of these things, and I think they'll come out piecemeal as they have to. So that's definitely still an overhang in the market that doesn't feel too good. But look, bigger picture, like our industry just got fucking reset, right? Like the whole thing basically got reset. And if you're a believer in the space, that's pretty good, because it means if you're right, you get prices that you wouldn't have ordinarily had a chance to do business at. Not necessarily now, but over the next, 2-6 months, or however long you have, however this thing unfolds, like a bigger picture, all the bad actors just got obliterated. A lot of good actors went down with them, which is always the very painful and unfortunate part. But if you kind of view it on neutral terms, that the industry has been reset, leverage has been reset, and you get to start close to from the ground up. If you have a bullish crypto multi-cycle thesis, you're going to get to do business at some decent prices if you care about that type of stuff.
Yep. I don't have a lot to add to that. It appears that if nothing else, there's time for this market to now go sideways, float up, float down. Who knows exactly? But like, there's no significant rush, right? I mean, there hasn't been a rush, but it's also been a significant downtrend. But even if we bottomed, it's probably not like to the moon, I was just looking, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average is actually the strongest index I could find, in terms of just kind of what's relevant here. You kind of pointed at that higher high, you could call it inverse head and shoulders type of thing, and it's the only one that's at an equal high of where it was before. And this is only, if anybody doesn't know what the Dow is, it's 26 companies that are typically all like high revenue generating, yield bearing type of companies, in terms of where the risk appetite is. So we have to, if you're going to seek to trade, you got to find where is the risk appetite, like where is the appropriate venue for me to trade if you're not just only going to be crypto. Because I want to answer a question. Lee asked, should we all just trade ES for now? And Cred, I'm curious to get your thoughts on that. Like, if there's not volatility, or I guess there is volatility, but if there's not the type of kind of long only spot trade that you're seeking in crypto, would you look towards the stock market or other markets, commodities markets or something, to try to seek exposure?
I mean, I think it depends on your trading style, and it depends whether you like trade for a living or what your circumstances are. It's pretty tricky. I would say that the market has been pretty technical, at least on a large enough time frame. So that's decent. I've seen a lot of people who are quite clinical in the Bitcoin low time frame order books. transfer some of their skills quite well to the ES, like the micros or the minis and whatever it may be. And because these markets are very liquid, especially compared to like trading some altcoin perp low down on the list,
or even individual names, like, or sector-based stuff.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, I don't have any personal experience trading these things and derivatives of these things or whatever, but if you're a shorter time frame, technically minded person and you want to give it a shot, I'd never dissuade anyone from doing that. I would just, I would approach it humbly that this is a new market, this is a different beast, and I have no experience at this thing, and I don't know how it moves. I don't know what the flows are. I don't know the nuances and the rules, so to speak. So I think if you want to give it a pop, I'm not going to tell anyone not to. As long as you remember to come back at some point to our Ponzi coins, don't get carried away. Basically,
I think saying approaching it humbly is a good way to put it. Like I've seen some individual trades. Like I have I have positions in some uranium stuff, some like this oil index is a ETF called XLE. And I just think that the underlying oil narrative remains good for the companies, even if you don't have the like speculation on oil, if it's going to be 80 or 100. Well, most of these companies in this index do really well, whether it's 80 or 100. So this is an example of a trade that I've been in, but it's honestly to a smaller degree than crypto stuff because I've had an opportunity for crypto stuff to be worth more lately. Maybe not now, but lately. So like I think you can find sectors, you can find individual names, you can find like there's a better opportunity to find uncorrelated charts that
yes.
could be tradable for you. But yeah, approaching it humbly is a very good point.
Also, if you can take some time off, if you have the luxury of doing so, I think you should really. There's not a lot going on right now, especially once you've kind of secured your funds to a degree that's reasonable for you. I really think it's one of the better times to maybe take a break because what we're seeing right now is a lot of panic. We're seeing a lot of bad actors try to capitalize on the engagement that's being generated by the panic and people being emotional in that type of state. You're probably not going to miss anything in terms of fundamentals or projects doing this, that, and the other, or even price. And if you need like a mental window to reset a little bit before re-engaging with the industry, I really think this, this year-end type of thing might be a decent spot to do it.
Yeah, taking a break is never bad, and I just like I said, I don't think a lot is going to happen in a positive way. I keep telling myself and others that you probably have a year, 2 years to create a position, even from an investment perspective. Now, if you're trading, it's one thing, but if you're approaching this from an investment perspective, you probably have a significant amount of time to establish a position and be in a good spot overall. And that way, if we do go full recession, you're essentially establishing the average price over that period of time. So, yeah,
that's right. That's right. I've also just extended in my head my time horizon for all this type of stuff. Because the argument I've been making for quite a while on the show, I've been getting memed on it for good reason, which is like, oh, this stuff takes longer, and even if it does bottom, you got to reaccumulate and do this, that, and the other. For me, that's only moved up in terms of how long that might take because the damage is greater, right? And it's sort of the simplest way to think about it is the greater the damage, generally speaking, the longer it takes to reaccumulate and for that to go away and for the industry to regain credibility and build stuff that's worth investing into, and for the bear market builders to actually build something and the hype to go away and the scars to fade and the optimism to replace the pessimism and cynicism and so on and so forth. I think this is one of the biggest hits, if not the biggest hit in kind of our recent times. And, I think we owe a time debt on top of what already exists to the participants in this industry. So, yeah, even if it does bottom out, I think anyone expecting a COVID style quick march up is
infinity.
Yeah, exactly. I think a lot of chop ahead, really.
Within all this, though, there is a very real case that like this proves the need for the decentralized side of things, and like all the old lessons, right, that OGs had to deal with all the time. Not your keys, not your coins type stuff played out on a scale that is hard to fathom. But none of that has changed if you're thinking from within crypto. You know, people are like, where do we trade or where do we hold stuff? It's like, great. Dexes are great. Self custody is great. Like the burden, the challenges are a little harder. But that's all. That's just worth keeping in mind. You know, like try to learn the old lessons. Take information from this that you can utilize to be more successful in the future. Yeah, just put it in linear
Yeah.
for the fun of it.
Yeah, don't do that. That's scary. I agree with you. I think the issue that we run into as an industry is, given the sheer magnitude of the fraud and the size of the fallout as a result, I completely understand if someone isn't willing to have a good faith discussion when it comes to, self custody versus custody on exchange and all that type of stuff. Because that was like the face of our industry to like a lot of people, and certainly to the public. If you look at the lobbying, if you look at the advertising and marketing budgets, if you look at just kind of what people associate crypto with, all the celebrity endorsements and so on and so forth, I mean, for most people, that is crypto. And so after they get completely fucking wrecked by a bunch of fraud and some sociopaths, narcissists, and whatever else, going to them and saying, well, technically that wasn't crypto and it was just it was CeFi, and we have this thing called DeFi. I completely understand if no one has any time to listen to those distinctions, given the magnitude of the fallout, you know. So that's always very tricky.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have the political capital and goodwill to go to them and say, aha, but that wasn't crypto, that was CeFi, you know. It's like, listen, man, read the room.
Yeah, they may be right, but yeah, at the same time, read the room. What about people, we can finish here, more directly impacted by what you would call like Sam coins, the FTX arena, you know, the Solana ecosystem, obviously FTT is going to zero.
The FTX arena, that's a good one. It's named the stadium, right? That's good.
I didn't think of it in that way, but yeah.
Genius ledger.
It's like gladiators in there. There's some takeover bids going on in Solana. I don't know if you saw any of that. But obviously Solana as a whole is just on the struggle bus fundamentally here.
Yeah.
A lot more of these treasuries probably at risk on the long tail of those coins. The fundamentals of the chain might be the same, but like the players, the people that were building, the people that were doing stuff, many of them probably completely wrecked because it was the most direct attachment. Yeah, apparently Hisaka has some thread on various Sam coins and the impacts there. Is this the type of thing where you can look at it as an opportunity to dig in, or is it like a run with what you can type of scenario?
Look, I think over the medium to long term, I really like a good comeback story, and I really think that the magnitude of the fallout will just kind of wash out any VC ownedness when it comes to this coin, and those associations will become untenable given everyone is wrecked and liquidated. And that does mean that by definition, the swing will continue to underperform because of all the implications and the supply and the lockups, and, you know, even Chapter 11 and all these insolvent firms or firms of money stuck on FTX who are currently like very heavily invested in the ecosystem, eventually having to sell. So like in the short term, you don't want to be bidding like SBF Empire coins. That's just a really bad idea given the supply dynamics. But I think, I mean, I don't know if I'm completely wrong here, but it does seem like in the last maybe 3 to 4 months, Solana was doing fairly well, sort of independently of that arm. And yet, like, the hackathons are always really busy, and the NFT community on there is innovative, and stuff actually seems to be going on there. So I'd really love to live in a world where this whole wipeout also just kind of wipes out the association between Solana and it being a completely VC-owned coin, and it gets to sort of run it back on its own terms. And also, I think Raj and Anatoly, they started all this stuff like in the bear market. You know, that was their raise, and they sort of know what it's like. So I'd really like a good comeback story. When it comes to price, I mean, it's really scary what you're drawing, but something like that wouldn't be like shocking to me.
Right.
Or at the very least, as all this stuff starts to unwind, at the very least lower, I'm totally fine with all of that. But yeah, I'd love to live in a world where the sort of VC live and die by the VC association, contributes a lot of upside, then a lot of downside, but then it gets to sort of forge its own identity. Having survived that, I think that'd be that'd be narratively quite compelling. So it's on my watch list. I'll say that much.
This is speculative, but I find all activities to be concerning now in terms of like what FTX and Alameda were doing. The move from $3 seems inorganic, but maybe that was like self-fulfilling by the community. The move in June, you recall you and I and others did a stream basically at the bottom of the 2021 stuff. And I just wonder if that whole fall was a source of the gap. And I wonder like how organic that move from 25 to 200 plus was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pump it.
Also, it's lower right now, by the way. Sorry, very quickly. If you go to like Sol USDT on Binance and not on FTX, you'll get
I'm sorry.
Get a better price feed.
My charts are all freaking red.
Yeah, I had to redo my watch list as well.
Yeah,
that's why it's
at $13. So
it's green.
Sorry for anyone that thought it was more bullish. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like it makes me question this leg, like the move from $3, the coin mamba in your face with all of our customers' money. Like all that creates problems, and this needs even more time to repair. So yeah, as an aside.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a huge cynic of the layer 1 casino in general, but the fact that Sol had like some NFT stuff going and the hackathons and some semblance of a community that was meaningfully visible on Twitter, even when stuff got nuked and the liquidity incentives weren't there and so on and so forth, I'm like open-minded to owning it alongside like ETH, BNB, BTC.
Yeah,
pretty much.
I just think this one, even more than BTC and ETH, needs a different form of price discovery, right? Like what is the not SAM influenced price?
Yeah, the non-bullshit price, basically.
Yeah, and at that
we'll
point,
find out.
At that point, let the tech stand and like see if it can have its supposed Ethereum moment, and then what is the opportunity from there? That really excites me. Like that actually, same. Yeah. So
it's a good story, eh?
It is, and I'm rooting for the Solana ecosystem in this. I think it's quite a get your teeth knocked out and get up again type of story potential that I'd be excited to see.
Get pillaged by Alameda and Sino Global, allegedly, in Minecraft. Just my opinion. But yeah, there were some firms that were like pretty active in investing in a lot of these SAM ecosystem tokens, which were getting rightly criticized at the time. But now, especially knowing what we know, becomes even more difficult to defend, even if you wanted to in the first place. So I hope, if this chain does make like the type of meaningful comeback that we've described, that if they have like a sub ecosystem or like a DeFi ecosystem to go with it, that it's actually a bit more balanced and decent and user friendly and not just like a VC stomping ground. Because I think the Solana example was just absolutely appalling. And yeah, there's a lot to come back from, let's put it that way, but it'd be a sick comeback story should it materialize.
Yeah. Shall we leave it there?
Yep, I think so.
Thanks everybody for joining us, and yeah, we look forward to keep talking to you. That's all we know to do. We'll try to. We might need some new music too. This is just like a stock clip that existed, and we just kept it. So, nevertheless, if you like this show, you can press like here, holler at us. We look forward to hearing from you, and look forward to having you on with us in the future. Go to weeklyopen.com, maybe. Just stay here on YouTube for now. We'll catch you next time.